Hello everyone, welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. In today's session, we are going to have a look at the daily Hindu analysis and we'll be taking the newspaper of 26th January 2024. Now, when we look at all the important topics that we have, first there are three topics that we are going to discuss in detail, and these are the three topics that we have right here. One, with regards to a new report on higher education in India. Then after that, with regards to a very problematic situation that we have been seeing with regards to snowfall in Kashmir and also in Himachal and Uttarakhand. And then there is another article on page number 12, that is opposition MPs in parliamentary disruptions. Now these are the three articles that we are going to discuss in detail, and then apart from that there are four more articles that we are going to discuss with regards to one being Aligarh Muslim University's minority status, then Myanmar's ethnic minority fighters that seizing the port, Red Sea crisis may hurt companies from economic perspective, and then Vaibhav scholarship program. So these are the four other articles that we are going to discuss in today's session. Now, first and foremost, we are talking about page number 18, GS2 related, social justice related article, and this is about higher education enrollment rose by 19 lakh in 2021-22. Now, this is a report that was published as a part of the All India survey on higher education. Now, there are a lot of data points that were released and lot of things that were published with regards to what are the various indicators and how these indicators have been improving with regards to higher education in India. So we need to analyze those things. We need to analyze with regards to not only this report but also the differences that we see between this report versus the last. That what are the ways in which we have seen an improvement in this particular report. So that's why this comparison becomes very, very important for us. So we'll look at all that data with regards to the comparison. We have picked some data, not all. The ones which looked to be more important for you, we have picked that data. So we'll discuss about that data that they have published, plus some of the reasons behind these improvements. So we need to understand from that. Let's say when we are looking at your mains examination, they would not ask you the data, right? They'll not ask you what happened and what was the improvement and all this, but they can ask you what are the indicators or what are the reasons behind the improvements in the data that we see here. So that's why we'll look into all these aspects of where have we improved and what are the ways, what are the things that has led to these kind of improvements. So first and foremost, looking at the overall findings of the data, overall findings of the report. First, the total increase in the enrollments. Now overall what they have said is that there has been an increase from 3.42 crores in 2014-15 to 4.33 crores in 2021-22. So overall enrollments in the higher education of Indian students has increased. So this is the very first thing that they have said. Apart from that, one more thing has been about female enrollment growth, where they see a significant jump from 1.57 crores in 2015, that is 14-15, to 2.07 crores in 2021-22. So overall improvements in enrollment numbers, plus the numbers have also improved when it comes to female education in higher education. Then in case of science stream also, what we have observed is that overall improvement has been seen in the female enrollment numbers. Especially in case of female numbers, we have seen that the enrollment numbers have been higher than the male numbers, which is a very good indicator of everything that as a part of policy, as a part of various schemes have been implemented by the government over the years. So that's why this can be seen as a very good indicator of the improvements happening in female education as well. A couple of days earlier, we had also discussed about the early childhood education and how early childhood education shows some patterns where female education in India is not doing that great, and there are scopes of improvement that we had discussed in that particular article. Now in this particular scenario, when we look at higher education, this is where we see that female education has been doing better. So that's why it becomes a very, very important aspect of the key findings of the survey. Then apart from that, it also talked about the PhD enrollments, and in case of PhD enrollment, it says that overall progress has been observed in female participation in higher research. So overall, again, if you look at this, the numbers have almost doubled from 0.48 lakhs in 2014-15 to 0.99 lakhs in 2021-22. So this is another improvement that we have seen in case of PhD education. Then with regards to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe enrollments as well, here also we have seen an improvement, that for example the SC education enrollment was 46.07 lakhs, which has increased to 66.23 in 2021-22, and in case of scheduled tribes also we see that there has been an improvement from 16.41 to 27.1. Now here I also want to point out something, that in case of this article, when you go back to this article, there is one thing that you have to note here, that in this part, I think they have committed a mistake in this part of the newspaper, because they have just mentioned about the enrollment status of ST students twice. I think they had to mention the enrollment status of SC students and ST students, but they have missed that and they have just repeated that data twice. So I think this is a small mistake that we have in this article here. So just remember that this number that they have given you here, this is correct. I mean, for ST data it is correct, but the SC data that they have given, I mean, they have, I think, by mistake not given it, and they have repeated the ST data twice. So that's why just remember that this is what has been given in this particular survey, that the SC status also has improved. So there has been an increase, if you see here, that if you see, there has been an increase of 44% in SC education enrollment status. Then apart from that, some of the other indicators, we also see that in the northeast also, in case of OBC students also, we have seen that there have been improvements in all these indicators. Now all these numbers are good, and all these numbers show some improvement in all various aspects of higher education, but more important for us is also to understand what are the key reasons. Why exactly do we see these kind of improvements, and what are the various initiatives that have led to these improvements in these numbers? Alright, so let's take a look at that first, that what are the various factors behind the growth in numbers that we have been witnessing. So there are a lot of factors that you can think of. Let's say when we look at it as a mains question, for example, then there are a lot of factors that you can analyze here. So for example, the first can be the government initiatives that we have taken in case we have seen in case of higher education. So there are certain schemes. For example, let's say when you talk about these schemes, some of these schemes have been very, very crucial. For example, there is the Pragati scholarship scheme that has been at the center of this particular scenario, where the government has been trying to promote education, higher education in female students, in girl education, and that's why there are all these scholarships which are now available for. This is basically for higher education for female students. So here what we observe is that there are scholarships that are being given to girl students for higher education, and that also is something that helps economically as well, and that's why this has been a very, very important indicator. At the same time, there is another scheme which also has been in function for scheduled caste students, and this is which is called as post matric scholarship. Now in this particular scenario, what we see is that this is where they are trying to improve upon the dropouts that we see in case of scheduled castes. So what the government wants is that the dropout rates that we see after matriculation, that has to come down, and to bring it down, they have come out with these kind of scholarships, which will help especially when it comes to the poorest of the families from these communities. This is where it is going to help them to provide that financial support that is required in once in a while, so that they can also go towards higher education. So one of the ways you can say that, maybe you can say that this also has been one of the ways in which you are providing more support and hence leading to more enrollments in higher education in scheduled castes as well. Then apart from that, we also have to understand other aspects. So that's why government initiatives. Then from the perspective of increased awareness and aspirations as well, it becomes very, very crucial, because what we have observed is that overall awareness in people altogether with the growth and the economic factors, we see that that has led to better aspirations and better awareness in all these fields, and that also has played a big role in providing that push towards better education. Then at the same time, gender specific policies also have been adopted. Now, one of the things which hinders female education, especially in higher education, has been the safety or the security of the women students. So when it comes to the female students, there is another program, another scheme that we see right here, and this has been from the perspective of the guidelines that has been put forward by the UGC on basic facilities and amenities for safe, secure and environment for women and women's cell in case of higher education institutions. So that is something that will provide a a safe, secured and a violence-free environment, especially to women students. So that's why these guidelines have been given to all the higher institutions, all the higher education institutions from all the different fields, and all the institutions, all the universities that are affiliated with the UGC, they have to follow these guidelines and they have to ensure that they are implementing each and every part of these guidelines. So that's why this also becomes a very, very important initiative, and that's why when we are looking at gender specific initiatives, this becomes a very, very important contributor to ensure the safety and security, so that more participation could be seen in higher education from female students. So that's why from this perspective, gender specific policies, they become very, very important and play a very crucial role. Then technological advancements. Now in case of technological advancements, the role of NPTEL becomes very, very crucial, because this is where we have seen that they can play a major role. So if you see this NPTEL, this is National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, where you have free online lectures available given by the government, and you can go to NPTEL website, and from there on you can actually go and study anything that you want. And this is where we see that renowned professors from all across the universities, from IITs and IIMs and all the ISCs, etc., they would be available on the platform. Their lectures are available free of cost. They can be availed very easily when you go to the NPTEL website. And for all the various, especially when it comes to the technical branches of sciences, engineering, mathematics, etc., you'll find that these lectures are available for free. So that's why these kind of lectures being available, all these resources being available, not only the lectures but also the notes of these lectures in form of PDFs, etc., are also available for the students, and any student from anywhere can simply just go to the website and they can get those lectures from there. So that also helps in bridging the gap that we see in the better education that is required many a times. Many of the universities historically may not have been able to provide this kind of support. So that is where we see that a student-led initiative can also help, and they can actually go and just listen to all these lectures, which are very easily available. They even have a YouTube channel, and there also people can go and they can watch all these lectures. So that's why the integration of technology into higher education also has been a major contributing factor in ensuring that more participation comes in higher education. Then after that, one more factor has been the economic growth. Now, in this particular scenario, what we see is that better economic growth has also led to a lot of new opportunities being here. Now, for example, when we look at this growth, if you consider some of the various schemes that have been brought by the government of India, suppose that if you take Make in India initiative, right? So as a part of Make in India initiative, we do see that it will help, or it has been helping the manufacturing sector. Now that it helps the manufacturing sector, what it means is that there will be new opportunities that will be created in this particular sector, right? So new opportunities will be created, and for these, to cater to these opportunities, you need skilled workforce. And for any economy, one of the indicators of economy always has been having skilled resources available, to cater to all the requirements of the new opportunities being created. Now in this particular scenario, if we just consider the Make in India program from this perspective, then it does need a lot of new skilled resources, and this is where a program like Skill India program also comes and helps. So because this upskilling is required, better skilling is required, we see that there will be another push towards higher education in these kind of scenarios also. So that's why these advancements and these policies, they will play a very, very important role in ensuring the skilling of the workforce as well. So that is also where we see that it helps in securing better higher education in people all across. So that also becomes a major part. Then apart from that, we also see that there has been an improvement in the infrastructure, especially when it comes to the IITs and the IIMs. This is where we see that there has been a better infrastructure available, and across the board also we see that improvement in infrastructure in educational institutions will always be better, and that provides a better push for students also, and generates and caters to a lot of interest of the students as well. So that's why this becomes a very, very crucial in ensuring better push towards the growth in higher education. Then focus on research and innovation. Now this is where we see that again there have been certain programs and policies that has been pushing towards better research and innovation in all these, especially in the technical institutions. So for example, we have this program of Government of India called as the Imprint India program. Now this is where we are talking about this program being given as an option to all the technical education institutions in India, where better research can be facilitated, better program and policies can be implemented in terms of fostering the behavior in research. Because one of the things that has been lacking historically in Indian education has been that knack for research, or going forward for research, because we have been and it's not entirely the fault of a student or anyone who's going and studying in these institutions, but also about the opportunities. What historically we have seen is that opportunities available in, let's say, just getting a job in the service sector has been higher as compared to, let's say, in research or in fellowship programs, etc. So then in that case what happens is that even if somebody is just going and becoming an engineer, after engineering the only thing that everybody is looking for is a job, to get a job somewhere somehow. And unfortunately this is not entirely the fault of the student there, because many of the people who, or many of the students who are there in these technical institutions, they come from families where getting money as soon as you come out of that college is very, very essential, because it's not that you come from a home where you are secure enough that you can take a long time and it will not impact your family. So because of that, what happens is that there will be a push for everybody that as soon as you are almost about to get your degree, you are about to graduate, you should start looking for a job. So that hinders the kind of research that is sometimes required, because that support is not there. So that's why that support is required, and these kind of programs will help in providing that support, so that more emphasis can be given in education in these technical areas. Then apart from that, we also see that there are international collaborations also being done, and we looking towards globalization of education as well. So for example, the Study in India program. Now in this scenario, when we look at the Study in India program, So when we look at this Study in India program, this is again something that has been brought into uh, effect, and this is where the government is saying that they want to make India a hub for a global hub for higher education, global hub for higher education. And that's why the focus here in case of Study India program has been on bringing the foreign students into India, bringing foreign students to India, and that's why they can come here and they can study in our higher institutions, higher educational institutions, and that's why in a manner there can be a kind of knowledge sharing that always has been lacking here. So that's why this becomes very, very crucial as a part of the program. And then there are, of course, there are other schemes and again scholarship programs as well, and all these things, they play a very important role in ensuring that we are getting or rather the Indian students are getting the required exposure which is required in these kind of scenarios. So that's why we see that there are so many things that are being done. Apart from that, we also see that the role of NGOs also becomes very, very crucial. For example, let's say an NGO like Pratham, which has been working in this sector of education, has been very, very important. Similarly, the policy reforms in education, that let's say if you talk about the new education policy and some of the things that it has talked about in case of higher education also becomes very, very crucial. So that's why we need to understand all these factors and the various ways in which all these economic indicators, all these indicators in higher education, they become very, very important in fostering better education and ensuring that higher education becomes helpful for the Indian students, and it also creates a lot of opportunities and better opportunities for students all across the spectrum. So that's why it's not only about all these numbers that we discussed, but rather the factors behind those numbers that especially become important for examination. Moving on to the next topic, and again a topic that is very widely discussed over the past few days, and this is about why is there no snowfall in Kashmir. Now what we have seen is that, and normally you might know that January is really the month when Kashmir will be full of snow everywhere. This is where it attracts a lot of tourism from people all across the country, and not only in Kashmir but also in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. We see that these are the months when winter tourism takes its place, and a lot of people will be visiting these states only in the month of December because of the snowfall and the beauty of the snow that you see in these kind of months. Now unfortunately what we have seen here is that snowfall has largely been absent in these areas, whether in Kashmir, whether in Himachal, or whether in Uttarakhand. In all these areas, the kind of snowfall that they usually receive, that has been absent this time. And for example, in Uttarakhand, the first significant snowfall that they have seen is just, a week back. I think it was 19th of Jan when they first actually saw significant snowfall in some of those areas which are famous for winter tourism. Like you have Oli, for example, in Uttarakhand, where skiing is very famous, and the first snowfall happened on Jan 19th. Similarly, when it comes to Kashmir, we have seen that the places which have been the center of winter tourism, like a place like Gulmarg, for example, hasn't seen any snowfall. The picture, for example, that you see right here is of Gulmarg. So Gulmarg again hasn't seen snowfall, and it has just killed the tourism industry in these areas. Now this is what the context is, that there hasn't been any snowfall, leading to a lot of issues here. But we have to understand that issues do not just remain intact only with tourism and winter tourism in these areas, but they will have far-reaching consequences even in the coming months. So we need to understand what's happening, why it is happening, and what potentially could be the impact of this. So that's why this article, from the perspective of geography, and I would say partially also from the perspective of environment in your GS paper 3, becomes important. Now there are three things that we need to understand first. That here we are talking about factors that are leading to lesser snowfall or absence of snowfall. So here we are talking about what are jet streams, the role that jet streams play, the role of western disturbances, and the role of El Nino. So these are three factors that we need to understand here, we need to consider. And on that basis, we need to understand what exactly has been happening. So what we see is that there is a lack of snowfall, and lack of snowfall mainly is happening first of all because there is a significant decrease in western disturbances, prevailing El Nino conditions, and absence of a strong jet stream. So these are the three factors. So let's try to understand first what do we even mean by these three terms. What do we mean by jet stream or western disturbance or El Nino? So first we have jet stream. Alright, let me go to jet stream first. So now in case of jet stream, they are relatively narrow bands of strong wind in the upper layers of the atmosphere. Now upper layer of the atmosphere, usually what we mean here is 9 to 16 kilometers above the mean sea level. 9 to 16 kilometers above the mean sea level is where you have these jet streams. Now when you look at these jet streams, especially the role of subtropical jet stream becomes very crucial for Indian climate and plays a big role in influencing Indian climate. So now in case of subtropical jet stream, it plays a very important role. So you can just think of it like a stream of air, just like how river flows. Similarly, you can just think that there is an air flow that is happening here. Now this air flow that we see in case of jet streams, these jet streams will be flowing at a very high speed. All right, they will be flowing at a very high speed, and they would significantly impact the climate of India, especially when it comes to the winter months and the cold temperatures and the snowfall, etc. Even winter rainfall, they will play a big role in this. Now in all this scenario, when it comes to the jet streams especially, we see that they become crucial here, and their speeds can be very fast. I mean, they can be having a speed of up to 400 kilometers per hour, and with this they will be flowing in this particular part. Now when it comes to these jet streams, they will also have something to do with the western disturbances. Now when we say western disturbance, we are talking about an extra tropical storm that originate in the Mediterranean region, and they bring sudden winter rain to the northwestern parts of India. If you look at this particular picture, so western disturbances will start here in the Mediterranean parts, and then after that it will come via all these parts, and ultimately it will come to India, and this is where it will bring winter rainfall with it, and brings, basically you can say, a lot of moisture. It would bring a lot of moisture with it. Now usually what we see is that these western disturbances, you can just think of it as a big cloud movement happening. All right, big bout of cloud just moving towards India, starting from the Mediterranean and just moving towards India like a big cloud, and just pushing towards India. Now, and when it comes with a lot of moisture. It comes with a lot of moisture, brings moisture to these areas, and it will lead to rainfall in these kind of northwestern parts of the country especially, and overall when it comes to the northern belt in India. So it will play a major role in this particular scenario. Now when it comes to the western disturbances, usually what we see is that there are 6 to 7 western disturbances occurrences in India in the months of December and January. Alright, normally 6 to 7 of such western disturbances would happen, and they would impact the climate of North India, and this is when the temperatures will drastically fall. It will also lead to foggy situation in North India, and again snowfall in the higher altitudes in Kashmir, in Uttarakhand, and in Himachal Pradesh. So that's why western disturbance will play a very important role in this particular scenario. But then when it comes to the western disturbance that we saw this year, what we have observed is that the western disturbances almost have been absent, and there have been only 2 or 3 occurrences of western disturbances in the past 2-3 months. And even when it comes to these western disturbances have been only you can say, confined to the areas in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, and northern Maharashtra. So it has been only confined to these areas, and they haven't moved towards the areas in Kashmir or Uttarakhand or in Himachal. So because of that, we have seen that there has been absence of that moisture that was required in this particular scenario. So that also became very crucial factor. So that's why western disturbances, they play typically a very important role when it comes to impacting Indian climate, especially when it comes to the winter snowfall in India. So this is where we have seen that this becomes a big challenge. Now overall, when it comes to western disturbances, this is it. Then the third problem has been with regards to El Nino. Now in case of El Nino, what we observe is that whenever the years of El Nino come, they would have impact on two different continents. One, the impact that they would have on Asia, and then the impact that they would have on Americas, South America largely, but also North America up to an extent. So then in what happens in this particular scenario is that, as you see, that when it comes to the normal weather, what happens is that in case of El Nino, the weather would change and weather impacts would change, and it would lead to a lot of dry spells in Asian continent, and it would lead to a lot of flood-like situation, a lot of rainfall, extra moisture will be brought towards the America, especially South America. So this is basically what we will see in case of El Nino. So overall, now what happens is that El Nino, although it has impact on Southeast Asia and South America largely, but it is not that it does not have an impact on India. Wherever we have an El Nino year, we do see that it does impact India also. And in case of India, what happens is that when it comes to India, this is something which will also lead to a lot of drier spells. If you look at this map, what happens is that weather impact, if you see, in case of weather impact, if you see across India during an El Nino year, June to September, when it is supposed to be the monsoon time, monsoon months, this is when it will lead to dry spells all across the country. And whenever it has to be wetter areas, this is when we'll see that it will have a negative impact. So what happens is that it will start the year with wet conditions, then it moves to drier conditions, and then wetter conditions again towards the end of the year. So in this manner, we see that it has an impact where it alters the climate of the country during El Nino years. So now what happens is that El Nino does have an impact, and once in a while El Nino is supposed to happen. So wherever El Nino happens, El Nino will alter the climate, alter the weather patterns in that particular year. Now we do understand that fine, all these they have an impact on Indian climate, whether it comes to winter precipitation that will be brought in by western disturbances, or the changes in the dry and the wet spells that will happen because of El Nino, and even when it comes to, let's say, the role of jet streams and how jet streams will also bring in a lot of moisture, it will also play a major role in influencing especially the higher altitudes. Now when it comes to India this time, what you might have seen that in North India, temperatures have been very low, right? The plains of North India, we have seen that the temperatures have been very low. Whether you take, let's say, Punjab, and from Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, NCR regions to Uttar Pradesh, that entire region, we have seen that they have been very cold. And not only that, even in case of Himachal, Uttarakhand and Kashmir, there also the temperatures have dropped. When you look at the average temperatures, you will see that the average temperatures have dropped. But overall, what we have seen is that although the temperatures have dropped, but the moisture has been absent. Now temperatures have dropped, moisture has been absent. So generally, because of that, what's happening is that the fog situation prevails. Sunlight is not able to be present in a manner we would want it to, so for moderating of those temperatures. So that's why dense fogs have been reported in the plains of North India, and because of absence of moisture along with these cold temperatures, snowfall has not been happening. Because when would snowfall happen? When you have moisture and you have sub-zero temperatures, low temperatures, right? So temperatures are falling, temperatures are low, but And when you look at the data from the IMD department, you will see that the temperature has been low. That temperature has been almost 5 to 6 degrees Celsius lower than the maximum temperatures, and almost 4 degrees Celsius lesser than the minimum temperatures. So temperature has been low, but moisture has been absent. And unless you have a combination of low temperature and moisture, you can't have snowfall. So because of that, snowfall has been absent. So that's why we understand that they significantly, when it comes to these three factors, they become very crucial, because impact of western disturbances will be very crucial in bringing the rain and snow to northern India, especially in case of winter. And that's why it has led to on an average 80% less rainfall in the western Himalayan region. And not only that, when you look at the data, for example in Himachal Pradesh, there has been 99.1% less in case of not 99.1, rather 99.7% less rainfall since 1901, as the data suggests. So that's a significant number. Sorry. Since 1901, we have seen that we haven't seen such low rainfalls in this particular scenario. So that's why in Himachal Pradesh we have seen that this basically becomes a record, that there has been 99.7% lesser rainfall than usual, and we haven't seen this kind of scenario since 1901. So that's why impact of western disturbance is very significant in these kind of scenarios. And in case of El Nino, what we see is that overall, because of El Nino influence, we have seen that the December months have been hottest ever that we have seen, and an 83% lesser rainfall that we have seen in the northwestern parts of the country. So El Nino also has been playing role. And then in the case of jet stream, what we understand is that they have been able to contribute to subsidence of cold air in North India, but unfortunately, because of their influence that comes from the warming of the Arctic Sea, it has been affecting the strength and the direction of the winds. Now just understand these 3 points and where exactly do we see the problem. So first is western disturbance, and western disturbance, because of that there is a lack of moisture. Less western disturbance means less moisture, right? Second, El Nino. Because of El Nino, the temperature in some of these areas have been higher than usual, apart from the plains of North India. And then jet streams, because they have an influence from the Arctic waters, we see that now there are warmer Arctic waters that is significantly decreasing the strength of the jet streams. So these 3 factors together, they have led to a lesser amount of moisture in these kind of areas, yet with very cold temperatures. So that's why we have seen that these have become cold and dry months, and some of these areas have been warmer because of the influence of El Nino. Now so that's why we understand that these 3 factors, they are playing the role. Now the question is, are these factors acting alone? Are these factors acting alone, and there is no role of something else here, something larger at play? And this is where you have an obvious answer, and that is global warming. That we understand that a lot of these factors and the way the factors have been changing, it's also because of global warming, and global warming has been playing a significant role in altering of the weather patterns, in altering of the climatic conditions. So for example, we have seen altered western disturbances. What we discussed is that there have been only 2 or 3 occurrences of western disturbances in the last couple of months of December and January. If you look at the data from the last couple of years, the data for 2022, data for 2021, etc., you will find that the occurrences of western disturbances they have increased in the months of February and March. Alright, in the months of February and March, these occurrences, they have increased, and this is where they start coming a lot more. So western disturbance brings moisture. Now they are bringing moisture in the months of February and March, meaning that the temperatures are not that cold anymore. By the time you are in Feb or March, temperatures are not very low. It is bringing a lot of moisture. So that also means that it leads to a lot of flooding, a lot of flash floods, etc. in the higher altitudes. So that's why we have seen that the occurrences of extreme weather conditions like flash floods, they have actually increased in numbers in the later months of February, March, April, etc. So that has been a major contributor. And because of these altered western disturbances that have happened, because of the role of global warming, we see that this becomes very, very crucial. So western disturbances occurrences in the Himalayan regions, they have increased. So that becomes a very major problem, because these are happening now in February and March instead of happening in December and January. Then the influence of El Nino. Now what we understand is that El Nino also gets influenced by global warming. Because of global warming, the number of El Nino years has been increasing. Usually the frequency of El Nino was not as high as we have started seeing over the especially last couple of decades. So that also influences the climate every now and then. Otherwise it was just supposed to happen, let's say in rarity, maybe once in 10 years, etc. But now what we see is that these occurrences, they have been increasing because El Nino years have been also on a rise. So that also becomes very crucial, because we see that global warming has been increasing the occurrences of El Nino years. Then the alterations that we have seen in the jet streams, and this mainly has been happening because of warming of the Arctic Sea. Warming of the Arctic Sea. Because in case of Arctic Sea also we see that this becomes very, very crucial, because warming of Arctic Sea means that the kind of strength that jet streams need, that strength is not able to develop, and hence these become weaker, and because they become weaker, they are not able to carry the kind of speed and the way they influence the climate. They are not able to do that. So because of that, we unfortunately see that there has been shifting in the patterns of the jet streams as well. There has been a shift in the pattern, especially of also the subtropical jet stream as well. We have seen that it becomes very crucial, because ultimately the distribution and the intensity of precipitation will be altered because of that. So that's why what happens because of this is that the jet streams become weaker. Jet streams become weaker, and this basically leads to, or this changes jet stream patterns, and also leads to less precipitation. Alright, it leads to less precipitation and alters the cycle also, and changes the cycle of precipitation. So that's why we see that jet stream alterations also play a major role, and this has been happening because of global warming. Then extreme weather events have been increasing, and it's not only about flash floods in the northern parts, but you will see that all across the world the occurrences of cyclones, or occurrences especially of the tropical cyclones. At the same time, we have seen that even hurricane, etc., the number of cases have been rising. Extreme weather events like even droughts have been increasing. The number of occurrences of floods in India or across the world has been rising. So all these extreme weather events also have been on a rise because of the alteration of the climate change. So overall, that we see that climate change actually has a major impact here, and it leads to a lot of situation where it can lead to all these problems. Because now you have to understand that when it comes to lack of snow, the lack of snow is a problem right now, but the same snowfall that happens during the months of December and January and maybe early February, until let's say mid or late February, this will lead to a lot of snow deposits. And as the temperature starts to rise in the months of March and April, this is what will feed the Indian rivers. So when it comes to the entire Indian plains and all the rivers that are feeding the Indian plains, all these rivers will get their water from this snow. Now, if there is lack of snowfall, it also means that there will be less water available in the coming months. So it can lead to overall water scarcity in the summer months and before monsoon. And because of that, it can have a very huge negative impact on the crops being grown in the summer season, because the kind of water requirement that you have there, the water will not really be present, and that scarcity can play a big role in altering or let's say even negatively impacting Indian agriculture in the coming months. So that's why we have to understand the significance of this event, which is not only related to just snowfall or the absence of snowfall and tourism, but it goes way beyond that, because it will create a lot of negative impact in the coming months. So that's why we need to understand all these aspects and the linkages that we have here, which is not only related to just a couple of occurrences of lack of snowfall. Now coming to the third article, and this is the article which is related to polity, and this was in your editorial page: opposition MPs parliamentary disruptions. Now when we look at this article, the context of this article has been about the suspension of the MPs. That initially there were suspension of 141 MPs from the parliament, where we saw that there were 95 from Lok Sabha and 46 from the Rajya Sabha who were suspended. And this suspension happened when this occurrence happened when gas canisters were brought into the parliament, and there was a kind of security breach that we saw in the parliament. Now when it comes to this, what this article talks about is what impact it can have on overall Indian democracy. That so many parliamentarians being all of a sudden suspended means that you have almost taken away the representatives of 35 crore population from India. So now what happens is that many of these, what the article also argues is that a lot of these MPs who have been suspended, they have been contributing significantly. That they have been the ones who have participated in a lot of debates. They are the ones who have also brought in a lot of private member bills. They are the ones who also have received the Sansad Ratna awards, etc. So there are all these things that have been brought into the picture, that many of these parliamentarians, they have been contributing a lot to the functioning of the Indian democracy, and that's why their absence from the parliament also would have a negative impact on a lot of decision making that needs to happen in the parliament. So this is where we are right now. So that's why we need to understand these issues overall, that their absence can create a lot of problems, that it means a lot of problems in the decision making. The kinds of debates and reviews that you need for any bill or any decision being taken in the parliament, that cannot really happen now. So that plays a major, it can have a major impact on the entire functioning of the democracy. Now overall the issues are not only related to this, but when it comes to the entire functioning, we have seen that again there have been a lot of factors that have been contributing in this particular scenario, and this comes from both the sides, from the side of the government and side of the opposition. And a lot of issues that we see here, they stem out of a certain problem like this. Now when it comes to these disruptions, we also see that the data suggests that the number of disruptions in the Indian parliament over the past few years has been increasing. Now these disruptions, whether in terms of in cases of protests or maybe walkouts from the parliament, the number of occurrences have been increasing. Now when it comes to these numbers increasing, there are various factors that are playing behind these numbers also increasing, or these occurrences increasing. So that is what we need to understand, that it can have a lot of potential impact on the entire functioning of the country. that, for example, there will be a reduced legislative scrutiny altogether, because the discussions in the parliament won't happen, because there is no one to discuss with. So all the points being presented, all the things that needed a constructive criticism somewhere, they can't really happen, because many of these suspended MPs, they have been contributing a lot, and their role is very, very crucial in a better functioning of democracy. So that's why this becomes very, very crucial. Then after that, it also weakens the checks and balances overall on any decision or any bill that is being brought into the parliament. So that's why we need to also realize the importance of opposition, and absence of opposition would also mean that in many of the cases, strong legislations cannot be brought in. Strong legislations cannot be brought in. There may be problems. There are other aspects that maybe one side hasn't thought of and the other side would point you out, but unfortunately, because of lack of them, it can be a major problem altogether. And then after that, what we see is that it will also lead to diminished public representation, correct? Because as we discussed, that we are talking about almost 35 crore population of the country, whose representation has been suspended from the parliament. So it also means that the voices of the people of those areas, they are also not present in the parliament, and hence it also means that their issues cannot be brought forward, or those areas and the issues related to those areas that are being represented by these MPs, they cannot be brought into notice. So that's why it means that, in a manner, let's say if the people are not getting their voices, that's the whole idea of democracy. So that goes against the idea altogether, is what we need to understand. And that's why it also leads to an erosion of public trust, that the kind of civil engagement that needs to happen, the kind of representation that needs to happen, the voices of the people that need to be brought into the floor, that cannot happen anymore if, let's say, these kind of scenarios occur. Then it can also lead to polarization and increasing of the political tension overall, because what happens is that the persistent disruptions that happen in the parliament, that can actually lead to only one side getting their voice and the other side not getting their voice, and these suspensions, that's why they cannot hold for long. And it also leads to a negative perception internationally as well, that we have been seeing that a lot of international journalism has been reporting about this. They also have been talking about the health of Indian democracy and the issues related to that. So it may have a negative impact altogether, and the democratic credentials that India has, that is under scrutiny, that is under question now because of this kind of scenario. And it also leads to stifling of the diverse voices, because there are people or parliamentarians coming from all across the country, representing people from all across the country. So overall, that's why we, in a manner, you can say that the limiting of their voices or silencing of their voices may not be healthy in making inclusive and effective governance. So that's why we need to understand all these issues and the potential impact that all these issues can have, and that's why the government also needs to ensure that there are all these voices also which are getting their representation as much as required. And that's why we have been seeing a lot of concerns being raised altogether. So we need to come to a conclusion about, with regards to where we are and what needs to be done, what is the effective way of tackling any kind of disruptions as well. Because disruptions, I mean, we can say that these disruptions are leading to suspensions, etc. But at the same time, we have seen that there has been a shift in the way of the functioning as well in many cases, which has led to more number of occurrences of disturbances. Because let's say whether it is the role of the kind of majority that the present government has, so already the number of opposition numbers are already low. So in that case, their voices are not really getting the foreseat that they should get. At the same time, we have seen that the internal problems inside the opposition also has been a big factor, because they also have to unite and they also have to put up a united front when it comes to the parliament and the parliamentary functions. But many times that also has not been the case, and we have seen that that also has led to a lot more disruptions and the problems associated with it. So all these are there, and at the same time the role of media also becomes very, very crucial in understanding the problems, because the opposition voices are not getting a lot of media attention, a lot of media coverage, and that also leads to lessening of these issues and or lesser voices of these issues. So that's why we have to understand all these problems and the potential impact overall that it can have on the entire functioning and the governance of the country and the Indian democracy and as it exists.